we were talking about toughness versus strategy,
Yeah.
and this, I don't want this to sound weird or weak, but like it's sometimes toughness or having to be tough is something that you want to like use as a reserve tank, or at least in my opinion, from coming from the world of strategic sport or like competitive sport. I hope I could win without having to be tough, because that means my strategy, my resources, all my training has been on. And then tough is that X factor I have if I have to go there. But really, like it probably makes me sound like a complete pea, but like I'm going to try to use as little as my resources as possible to get the maximum result. So I have the reserve tank when I have to.
These are stories of outdoor adventure and expert advice from folks with calloused hands. I'm James Nash, and this is the Six Ranch Podcast. The Six Ranch Podcast is brought to you by Sig Sauer. SIG is a leading provider and manufacturer of firearms, electro-optics, ammunition, air guns, and suppressors. For over 250 years, Sig Sauer Inc. has evolved and thrived by blending American ingenuity, German engineering, and Swiss precision. Today, Sig Sauer is synonymous with industry-leading quality and innovation, which has made it the brand of choice amongst the U.S. military, the global defense community, law enforcement, competitive shooters, hunters, and responsible citizens. Sig Sauer is also a premier provider of elite firearms instruction and tactical training at the Sig Sauer Academy located in New Hampshire. For more information about Sig Sauer and its complete line of products, visit sigsauer.com. No, that's a beautiful buck.
Thanks, man.
I have not shot that many big whitetails, but I've got a really good opportunity this year in Kansas. I've got a good tag in Kansas, and man, they shoot some big deer back there.
Yeah, I've never hunted Kansas before. I hunt Missouri every year, and I've killed a couple of good ones there. That one, and then this past year I killed a good one with my bow and with my rifle there. So yeah, that Missouri, I wouldn't say I have figured out, but I definitely know that I like it there. But Kansas and Nebraska and all that stuff looks super cool too. Iowa is obviously a spot that I want to hit one day.
Cool. Well, we're here with Mr. Bert Sorin, the winner of the freaking Hunter Games. Dude, I'm so proud of you.
Thanks, man. That was quite the surprise. I think everyone hopefully saw how surprised I was.
What's your history in shooting like? Have you shot very many competitions?
No, not like competitions.
Yeah.
I've shot it like we did a thing called Smoke Check years ago that was like this selections based kind of competition that had survival skills and shooting and like some kind of fighting kind of stuff and some strength stuff, and did pretty well. I think I won that, but then so kind of like, not like big time stuff. And then a couple different shooting and strength events at some stuff like for Everly stock. And those events, I've done those type things, but never like a sanctioned competition.
Well, you crushed it. Did you have a good time?
Oh, I had a ball, man. It was really, really a fun experience. I was thrilled to be invited. That was like, I was super pumped about that. Recalibrate my mind from the super pumped to be invited to the like, hey, this is a competition. And then it's like, all right, time to compete.
Yeah. Yeah.
Without trying to put pressure on myself. I mean, because there's so many amazing shooters and athletes. And it's like, okay, I'm, my number one goal, was don't make a fool of yourself. So,
man, if stuff like that, if people are safe and have a good time, then like, that's awesome. Everything else is gravy.
That was the thing, and I'm not from altitude. So like the altitude and the terrain was pretty rough. I trained as much as I could going into it. But the number one thing is like, don't get hurt, don't make a fool of yourself. that was it. And then, and the team, I'll be honest, like I went into it, I didn't know the rest of the team. So it was, although we were a team, eventually it was like the first couple of rounds were like, I was putting it on myself, like, hey, I want shoot clean, do what you got to do your job first. But it's pretty sweet because within, say, 2 iterations, I think everyone on the team gelled really quickly, and we were all like really excited to help each other and for each other to have success. And then it was cool by the end of the day, in the first day, we were all just, okay, how do we help each other succeed? And that was what was a neat lesson for me is, we end up doing honestly better than when I was worried about my shooting necessarily. So it
Yeah.
was a good learning experience for me, and the team was fantastic.
Well, and you're obviously, a competitor. You've got a history in competition. Corey, as well as your team guide. Corey is a very smart, very analytical person with a long history of performing at the very highest level. And since he got to shoot the competition last year, I guarantee you he thought about it all year long. Like, if I go back, this is what I'm going to do differently. And the ability to take a lesson and apply it to action and then turn that into success, like, as much as anything, that's what separates winners from losers.
Yeah, I think so. I think what we did very well, and really Corey had some amazing leadership qualities. And I have to say a lot about Kendall as well, man. He came in super, super helpful, but just like open, ready to go. He was the team player from jump. And then by the end of the second day, like you could see his leadership qualities developing. But what we would do, I mean, whether we cleaned out a target group or even if we did pretty well, we had after action meetings after every round that we would go, okay, that was cool. Like that target, we could have, if you notice, we could have gone 5 yards further back. There's that little rise. We could have shot prone. Yeah, we hit them all from the bipods, but maybe we could have done this better. Yeah, next time, get your bag over to me. Put your hip into my right shoulder. I could have been a little bit more stable, and like we rounded that up about a minute into our height going to the next round before we started breathing heavy. But we assessed every situation, whether it was a good one or a bad one. And I think that always helped us come up with our next move. And we ran into each iteration like pretty much loaded for bear, ready to roll, and that was the fun part. When we started getting to that level, it was like, okay, this is really cool.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
And I love Corey's ability just to say super calm and positive. And
Yeah.
that was very, very comforting, because I mean, he just never wavered, just nice and steady. And at times, like he would lead. And then at other times, I think I would kind of take a little bit of a leadership role. And then but we were never fighting for it. It was like, cool, Corey, what do you think we should do here? Hey, Kendall, what you good? Voice is like, Roger that, and then we just rolled, and no one was like fighting for the glory, which I thought was cool.
Yeah. No, all of you guys were super skilled and really humble. Last year on the course, after a hill hike portion of it, boys had just gotten to the top, and everybody was tired. It was a really hard hike. And everybody else on the team was like, yeah, whatever, not that big of a deal. I was like, how you doing, Hoist? He's like, that was freaking terrible. I hated that. I'm old. And he's doing it and crushing it like he has everything else in his life. But I really appreciated that honesty and comfort with himself that he was willing to bring to bear and all that.
Oh yeah, I'll be honest. It was one of the hardest physical things I've ever done. Because I try to hike and I try to do more basically for hunting. I hate endurance work. That's just not what I did for my entire athletic and professional athletic career. And I live at sea level. So two things again. So that one bomb up that first, the first day, well, I think we were one of the only groups that actually got it in, but that about killed me. Like there was definitely times that I was going like, all right, I'm going to have to like rest on this tree, or I'm pretty sure I'm just going to pass out like on my feet, which will be detrimental if I fall and, stab my eye out or something. So like that was very, very difficult for me, but I got to the top. I was I was not mincing words. That was that was hard. And then the 100-pound plus pack out on that slippery road when it got all that like greasy mud. Hoist and I were walking together, and this was actually pretty cool, real cool. I thought both of our glutes just totally locked up, like they just wouldn't go. And I was like, and I kept thinking, I was like, all right, got to be tough, got to be mentally tough, like just keep push through the pain. And then after a while, it was like I don't know if like mechanically my body is working anymore. It's not even a be tougher. It's just like I'm taking 6-inch steps because my top of my glutes are just locked down. And I look over at Hoist. I'm like, dude, I can't walk anymore. He's like, I know, I can't either. We're just like, oh, this sucks. We're literally taking these 6-inch steps, and my glutes wouldn't even like pull me forward. So I would have to like shift my body weight low and kind of glide down my own body weight to my other leg. And I'm sitting there looking, I'm like, we got 300 yards more to go. I know we don't have a ton of time. Like, I'm going to be the idiot that makes us get penalized for this. Like I'm getting down on myself. I'm like, man, like my legs aren't even working. Am I going to get freaking rhabdo? Like, and then have to go and be out in the hospital tomorrow. Like, crap. I was just like trying to assess that. And Hoist, I think, was feeling the same thing. And then Corey, who's just an animal, and Kendall, who surprised the heck out of us, they would both drop their packs and they ran back. Corey's like, hey, dude, give me your pack. So I rolled my pack to Corey. I took Hoist's ammo and his weapon off of his pack to lighten it up. Kendall lifted up a little bit on the back of Hoist's pack, and we all got across the finish line under the time. And it was like, that to me was like, in my opinion, it was a personal failure because I was not good enough to do it on my own. But I think that was a perfect lesson. I was like, yeah, but as a team, we all got across the finish line with 1 or 2 minutes to spare. Well, generally, I was first shooter. I'd set up the shot, and it tactically worked great because I was the guy who carried no weight for the last 300 yards. So I was recovered by the time we got to shoot. And then I think like I cleaned out all the targets. So it was like, oh, sweet. As a team, we make this really one cool organism, right? And it was a humbling experience because I go, okay, physically, I've never not been able to go anymore. Like my body hasn't, maybe a big set of squats where you just seize up, but like I've never done it where I could just stand there with a pack. I'm like, my legs aren't working anymore. Damn it. Like this sucks.
Yeah.
And so that was cool. And I was like, man, do I want to really tell people that like I couldn't finish a part? Like, hey man, that's what happened. And that was the beauty of the team was, it was one of the harder physical things I'd ever done, and that we did well is, I'm proud of that because I think we were able to push through. It would have had to have been extremely difficult for a lot of people, unless I'm just a total sissy, which could quite be the case. But man, that was a couple rough ones.
No, it was hard for sure. And these are the conditions that I live in and have for a long time. And it was hard for me too. The hardest thing for me was, the portion that I'm still mad about, that I feel like didn't have anything to do with hunting. And that's the wind sprint portion. And that was great. There was a lot of laughs and some great videos and stuff that came out of that. But I was just mad the whole time, running uphill in the mud at 9,000 feet. Like, what in the world is going on?
That was brutal, especially because we did it the first day right after we got up the hill.
Sure.
And it was like, I remember getting up going, okay, that was the hardest hike I've ever done in my life. And they go, you got 5 minutes and then we're going to do the workout. And I'm like, well, there's that, I'm just going to, and, but we took that very strategically as well. And the guys, especially Corey, just came up with an awesome plan. We figured it out on the way up, how many shots we're going to need to get into the pole position, what the splits were on those shots, on the times, how much roughly time we were going to be on the gun, how long it was going to take us to run up the hill. And we ran a time on it. And we just knew, I remember about halfway through, I'm running back down the hill and Corey passes me and he just goes, turn it up 5%. He's like, we crank 5%, we win this. It was like, okay. And I think at that time, 62 was like the shot, or, what is the top score. I think we got 68 on it. And it was like, but it was really, really cool. Cause like, we just had it figured out. Like, okay, we know where we need to be on this, and everyone communicated.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that was an interesting one. I was coming out of a hunt in Colorado a few years ago, and it had been even higher elevation than what we did in Wyoming. And this mountain range just didn't have water in it. So we were really low on water and just basically living on about 20 ounces a day for about a
Ooh,
week.
ooh,
And, carrying camp and living in the snow and in the cold, as high as I think like, I don't know, 12,000 feet. Uh, and at the end of that hunt, I had, I don't know, 4 mile hike out to the trailhead. And at one point, my back just quit, you know, and I've got some injuries that add to that. And I looked over at my buddy Tim, who's a Marine that was with me. And I was like, hey, just so you know, like the rest of this is going to be pretty slow, but I'm going to do it. It's fine. And the cameraman was a guy from back east that didn't really know what he was getting into on this hunt. And he'd struggled a little bit throughout the hunt, but he was doing it. He'd made it. And when we were walking out and I was kind of trudging along, dragging both feet, he said, I can carry your rifle if you want. And I was tired enough that I'd kind of lost my filter, and we'd helped him pack his camera equipment in. And
right.
I looked at him and I said, I'd rather die. And I 100% meant it. And as soon as I said it, I was like, oh, that probably made that guy feel bad. I shouldn't have said that. A no thank you would have been more appropriate. But yeah,
Yeah.
if I'd had a little bit more humility and a little bit more Hoist Gracie in me, I would have been like, thank you.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I talked to someone the other day, a couple of my friends who are very, very high level competitors. One's actually was a high level competitor and a coach for the US Olympic team. Another one was a Canadian record holder. We were all having a conversation. One was a 2-time world champion in powerlifting. We were talking about toughness versus strategy,
Yeah.
and this, I don't want this to sound weird or weak, but like it's sometimes toughness or having to be tough is something that you want to like use as a reserve tank, or at least in my opinion, from coming from the world of strategic sport or like competitive sport. I hope I could win without having to be tough, because that means my strategy, my resources, my all my training has been on. And then tough is that X factor I have if I have to go there. But really, like it probably makes me sound like a complete pea, but like I'm going to try to use as little as my resources as possible to get the maximum result. So I have the reserve tank when I have to. For instance, there was a group I saw. I don't know, remember who they were at the Sig Hunter. Heck, you might have been your group. Who was it the first day where we they called us off the mountain because of conditions, and there was a group that was maybe like one or two stations out that hiked back.
That was us.
I laughed, man. I'll be honest.
Yeah.
Because I did the math in my head. I go, they're doing 20% of work they don't get paid for.
Yeah. Yeah.
And as the competitor in me, I was like, I got them.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
like, and I looked, I said, are they getting extra points for walking back? And they're like, no. It's like, I'm sitting down, dude. And that comes from my world of like win.
Yeah.
Like what do you have to do to win? And so,
Yeah.
much respect, but
No, it was funny. We got a lot of mixed reactions about that. And in fact, one of the SIG staff came up and called me an asshole as soon as we got back. And I was like, oh, all right. Well, that was kind of a decision that the whole team made. And
sure.
that's fine.
From a training perspective, I love it. If it was a training day, I would have said, absolutely, this is going to make us better. But if we're counting points.
Yeah, there was a real functional component to what we were doing there too, because we were in a wide open spot and we'd had to sit out there in the wind for 40 minutes or whatever the ceasefire was. And I had little Python cowboy from Florida. He was freezing to death in the snow.
Makes sense.
So once we started hiking, everybody was warm again. And we're hiking downhill. And then there was this mad scramble to get the vehicles up there to get people off. So by the time we actually had a vehicle to bring us back to the lodge, we only had half a mile to go.
Right. No, I knew there had to be more to it, but just the competitor inside me was like, oh man, like that would be something I would never do. And it's probably why I probably had to give my pack to Corey. Like I'm just not tough enough.
Well, on that stage there that you're talking about, Mike Kimmel from Florida, he'd put too much weight in his pack, and he kind of didn't know. He'd never done that before. He'd never carried weight in the snow, on a hill, altitude, all that stuff. And I told him not to, but he did
Yeah.
it anyways, and good on him. But he also got gassed out. So
Yeah.
when we got up there and he kind of didn't have anything left, I was like, hey, just grab onto my pack and pull a little bit, and I'll just draft horse you the rest of the way.
Sure.
When I was a kid growing up here in this super steep country, I didn't like to ride horses all that much. I still don't, but horses are how you get around. So when we're cowboying in the canyons and stuff like that, going up these long, steep pitches that might be, 3,000 feet of elevation gain and, a mile, I would just grab my dad's horse's tail, and just that couple pounds of
Yeah.
extra to help pull you. You can hike up the steepest face on the planet just with a little tiny bit of extra.
Mm,
So for me, it was no big deal to pull an extra 5 or 10 pounds of weight laterally,
right.
but mentally and a little bit physically for Mike, it's everything to be able to reach out and grab a pack and have just that little bit of extra. And we made it across the finish line in time there too, and that was awesome.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's a cool lesson. I didn't know. I've not, I've kind of done like the help a guy push up on his pack, like kind of leaning forward a little bit. But like again, that whole mountain thing is pretty foreign to me. Like I've hunted out west a few times, but I'm no expert in mountain hunting by any means, and certainly not like yourself.
Well, a lot of it is just the mental aspect, like spotting somebody on a bench press. Like I'm sure you've seen that a million times where you're putting like an ounce of weight on the bottom of the
Sure.
bar, and all of a sudden somebody can do what they thought they couldn't do previously. But the mental component to that teamwork changes people's ability. Like that, the idea that I'm getting helped is enough to carry through. I think that's amazing.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I know removing that little bit from Hoist's pack probably didn't change a whole heck of a lot, but I know like, I mean, heck, with Corey removing that pack from my back, that was like I was actually able to. It took me still probably 20 yards to where I could walk again without the load on my glutes, but after a while, I was able to clip along pretty good. And had he not been in the shape he was in, and then offered himself up for that and Kendall help and whatever, like we'd have been screwed on that
Yeah.
one. Like, and that's a cool part of knowing those tricks. And I could have probably fought it like, no, I'm going to do it myself. It's like, well, we probably wouldn't have won.
uh, well, Bert, we kind of got down a Hunter Games rabbit hole here, which I'm not mad about at all. But tell me a
Sure.
little bit about yourself and Sorinex and who you are and how you got to where you're at.
Sure. Yeah. So I've been lifting weights around it my whole life. I'm 45 years old. I've been here for 23 years at Sorinex. A president and co-owner. My father started it in 1980 when I was a kid, and so I've been around it my whole life. And we build high-end, American-made, innovative strength equipment. We have for 42 years now, and we deal with universities, pro teams, and we deal with a lot of individuals as well. A lot of people in the hunting community are purchasing from us now, which is cool. A lot of military units, and have been for forever. I've been an outdoorsman and a hunter longer than I've been a weightlifter, as well as my father. So I grew up in that, and I basically the two things I've ever wanted to do is really be in the outdoors and be strong and lift weights. And I wouldn't say I was training for the Olympic team. I never made the Olympics, so I don't like to use the term Olympic caliber, but I guess by the ranking system, I guess I was to an extent. Hammer thrower, Olympic hammer thrower. So you turn really fast with a steel ball on the end of a wire. So that was my sport. I've always been kind of into the odd kind of sports. So I did that for a while, for years, and a couple of Olympic trials. And then I went into Scottish Highland Games and became professional there, traveled all over the world throwing trees and rocks. That's kind of always been my thing. My sports were always like 3 seconds or less of exertion, a lot of exertion, but
Yeah.
very technical and very fast. And then you would sit down for 20 minutes
Right.
and then you get up and do it again. So I found after I stopped throwing, training was not necessarily hard, but I lacked a direction. I trained to be kind of the same strength and kind of like, cause that's just what I did. I trained, and I was always hunting whitetails and bears and stuff like that, more Eastern style, pretty low physical need type hunt. And then 4 or 5 years ago, I started doing more. I did AL kind of probably 20 years ago, back in the early 2000s, but more recently started doing some more backcountry style hunts and realized that my old style of training was not going to do it. And I would hike and just get eaten alive because my type 2 muscle fiber, the fast twitch fiber, relies on ATP and not a whole lot of sustained effort. So like I literally trained myself as far away from a mountain hunter style as much as possible. So I'm finding that training for something now with a desirable outcome and result, and a measurable outcome and result, has been really, really fun. So that Sorinex Outdoors is literally just me saying, okay, I have all these people in the strength and conditioning world that know a lot of stuff that could help these people in the outdoor world. And there's a lot of these people in the outdoor world that have these amazing skill sets and lifestyles that I think could really benefit the people from the strength and conditioning world, because a lot of them didn't grow up in it. They grew up in urban or suburban areas because they were sports related. So kind of saying, hey, the two really groups of people on my phone besides my family are one of the highest level in both of these. And I said, let's just mash them together and make sure that everyone has open lines of communication and learning and education, and wanting to bring some of that to the outdoor space. And so that's kind of what Sorinex Outdoors is, but that's really just been a manifestation of my interest. The more opportunity that I've gotten to do things in the mountains and for some different type of animals, my training has just changed in itself. So that's kind of a little bit about me and what I'm doing.
That's awesome. I was thinking about this last night. It would be probably difficult, but it might be doable to calculate how many years your company has added on to American lives.
Oh man.
I think
That'd be awesome.
I think somebody could figure that out, that, based on the amount of exercise that people are doing with your equipment, has improved their health to the point that, they're going to live this much longer, times however much you've sold for how long.
That would be cool.
Dude, it's
That's
going to
an
be,
interesting metric, because we've always looked at like, oh, this many world championship teams or Super Bowls or NBA, blah, blah, blah. And then I kind of like the metric even more of, what has it done for our military and special operators out there? And guys call, they go, gosh, I was in this scenario and we were strong enough and tough enough that I got to come home, basically. And that's the stuff I really love. But when you talk more of a holistic health approach for the world or America, like that's a metric I'd love to be able to figure out.
it's millennia.
Quite possibly.
Yeah.
Quite possibly.
No, guaranteed, dude. Guaranteed. It's over 1,000 years of American lives have been added because people are working out with your stuff. That's a monumental thing. I work with an irrigation company out of Washington, another great American company. And I think about how much food they provide the world with the innovation that they've put into the sprinklers that go out all over the world and are able to move water in an efficient way that grows crops. Like,
Yeah.
What a profound impact. And there's a million cases like this, but it's worth thinking about how special that really is, and how rare it is, because there's a lot of tremendous effort that goes into things that really doesn't affect people in a meaningful way.
Well, I appreciate that. And yeah, we've always just wanted to make the world a stronger place. Like that's kind of the idea, just that we think people could be stronger and more accountable for their actions and more intentional on how they live their lives. And so that's kind of been part of our ethos. And it's cool that people are doing it.
Yeah.
That's cool. Do you live in Washington now?
I live in Northeast Oregon.
Okay. Northeast Oregon. Okay. My wife is from, I would guess it would be Northwest Washington.
Okay. Gotcha. Seattle area ish.
Higher than that, even like,
Gotcha.
Was it even above Bellingham, so Sumas and Linden,
Yeah.
right on the Canadian border.
Cool. Well, an unfortunate thing that's happened over the past couple of years in rural America is the places that we're fortunate enough to have gyms, a lot of them no longer do. So the closest gym, I think, to where I am now is 80 miles away, and it takes a couple hours to
Oh,
get there.
really?
Yep. So for these rural places, and people that would like to continue working out, if they were to get into a home weight system, I'd kind of like to talk through what the basic package would be that is like the absolute must have, and then maybe a little bit more advanced, like this is pretty Gucci, you can do a lot with this.
Right. Well, I guess I attribute it a lot to, say, buying a weapon, whether it's a bow or a gun or something along those lines. What is the requirement, first of all? Are you hunting brush country whitetails, or are you hunting mule deer in the desert? Like, two different weapon systems, right? So I look and go, what is your requirement?
And this although I talk about hunting a lot, this show's very, very global and pretty diverse. So we have all kinds of listeners. So it's not just
Awesome.
hunting specific.
Sure. Okay. So, again, I would still go back
What the
to
requirement is.
requirement. What are
Yeah.
we, yeah, what are we looking to accomplish with that gear? So, meaning, what are your current strengths or weaknesses? If you're someone who's just an inherently extremely strong person, but you maybe carry a little bit extra weight and you have horrible wind, then that's going to require a different.
I'm right here, bro.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I don't think my 600-pound squat ever helped me too much in the mountain.
I was talking to Major Brian Hubert last week about fitness in the Marine Corps, and he was in a little tactical facility, and they were doing some drone strikes. And another major that was in the talk there said, "You see what happens when we drop a bomb right here?" And he's like, "Yeah," like everybody else runs away. And the other major said, "Are they flipping tires away, or are they running away?"
You're
I
not
love it.
squatting away either.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah. So that's what I would say. What's your requirements? If you're a bigger person, whatever, like, heck, you could take a single kettlebell of any weight and swing a kettlebell, carry a kettlebell, and just freaking move a sustained, I would say, a sustained action movement, kind of steady state. That's just going to burn calories and build your work capacity, what we call GPP, which is general physical preparedness. That's the old Russian term for it. So you could just do that. I mean, that helps a ton. Now, if you wanted more of a holistic approach where you have a strength component, a conditioning component, really a barbell with some plates, and that's always going to build your chassis, your axial chassis. And so if you're carrying a pack or lifting something, or even looking for a health perspective of bone density, muscular density, hormonal, cellular, real quick. So strength training and training in general is an adaptation cocktail. And the whole point of strength training and supplements and recovery and all that stuff, or conditioning, is only to create a mechanical, a hormonal, or a cellular adaptation. So you have to look at it like that. It's almost looking at a gun. It's like, a gun doesn't matter what it is. It's a projectile launch device. That's what it's trying to do. It's trying to say that thing over there is too far for me to poke it, and I'm going to poke it from further away. So I got to put this pokey thing over there. So, like, I try to, like, boil things down very simply, so then you can see what actually occurs. So you're through a holistic training plan, you're trying to make adaptations at the cellular level, at the hormonal level, and that especially the hormonal level. People miss that, is different styles of training done at different times creates different hormonal responses in the body, which either burns fat, puts on fat, creates muscle density, bone density, things like that. So in that regard, to try not to go super long of this question, I would always say a barbell, some sort of rack that holds said barbell off the ground at a certain height, that you could start the exercise from a certain mechanically advantageous position, whether it's coming a squat off of a rack, a bench press off a rack, a standing press, or whatever it may be, because you want to do some heavy work, because heavy work is going to build bone density and tendon and muscular density. And the next thing you're going to do is rep effort work, which is going to build some hypertrophy, which is muscle growth. So the system itself will be able to grow and be able to support just large because of just muscular size. Obviously, you can't get too muscular, too big if you're going in the mountains. And the last bit is, as you're doing that rep effort, that's increasing your work capacity, which is kind of the one that hits closest from a mountain hunting perspective or just health perspective. You want to be able to have stamina. But here's something that I don't know if a lot of people realize. The Australian Special Forces did research years ago about pack carrying weight. So for a day-long movement at 20 kilometers, which would be what, like 13 or 14 miles. So, which is a long day, I would assume, for a mountain hunt. But at sea level, so this is just very basic, at sea level, 20 kilometers, they said that you need a 1.5 body weight squat in order to carry 30% of your body weight on your back. So let's put that into perspective. Say you're a 200-pound individual, 30% of 200 pounds is what, like 65 pounds ish?
So, yeah, 60 pounds. Yeah.
So 60, 65 pounds, 65 probably. So a 200-pound individual, they need to be able to squat 300 pounds, bar on their back, squat both legs, 300 pounds, in order to safely carry a 65-pound pack basically all day. Okay. If they're not that strong, regardless of their conditioning level, there's a potential for mechanical injury to the hips, the knees, the back, overuse. They're just not, the chassis isn't strong enough to carry that load, their payload. Okay.
Interesting.
So if you have a 2x body weight squat, hence that 200-pound person can now squat 400 pounds, all things being equal, they still have the capacity, the wind, all the conditioning, they could carry up to 45%, which takes them to almost 100 pounds, which strangely enough is roughly about a packed out elk quarter, or, what you would be carrying out. So that's why I talk to people like, yeah, you don't have to lift. But scientifically, they found out that if you have a 100-pound pack on your back and you're 200 pounds, which I say was probably the average person in the elk woods, if you have that 100-pound pack on your back, maybe you don't have to go 20 kilometers. But now we also were looking at sea level. Now you're talking 5,000-10,000 feet elevation and rugged terrain. You're legitimately putting yourself at a mechanically disadvantaged position that will at some point lead to some sort of injury, whether it's an overuse injury, acute injury, a twisted ankle, or something. The strength level is not there unless you're toting about a 2x back squat, which is 400 pounds, which is strong. So that's the stuff that I like to bring to the table and say, hey, you can be as tough as you want to be. At some point, your muscles and your bones are just going, F this. We ain't made for this. And you could will yourself through it until you snap something or pop something off, or you chew up your back or whatever. So that's where the strength and conditioning, the smart strength and conditioning comes into. What is the requirement? If I'm going on a hunt that's a day hunt, that I'm going out of a camp where I'm carrying 30 pounds, my bow on my back or my rifle or whatever, my day stuff. And then if I kill a bull, I got llamas and horses. Maybe I don't need to be that strong. Maybe that's fine. Maybe I just need to be able to walk forever. But if I'm doing a backcountry hunt where I'm 65, 70 going in, I'm 120 going out, you better be pretty strong and have a motor to go. So that's where I say an axial loading ability with a barbell on a squat or a deadlift is vital, not only for building that strength and what they call axial loading, which you're doing the spine and the hips. Appendicular would be your arms, curls and stuff like that don't really count in that world. But axial strength loading, that is absolutely vital for overall health and fitness. So those are some of the things I would say. A rack, something that you could use for a rep effort method, which either is just lighter weights. You could deadlift a gazillion reps and just for work capacity. There's kettlebells, there's things to carry. I found an extremely high benefit in the last 12 weeks from a sled. I do sled pulls backwards, but I also have a method that I've created of pushing a sled forward in a pike position just with straight legs. So it incorporates the hamstrings and the glutes in a very disadvantaged position. And I'm 45 now. My back has hurt since I was 18 years old, since I started competitively throwing. And I was telling my wife this morning, this is the first time since I've been 18 that my back hasn't hurt.
No
And
kidding. That's
it's
awesome.
it's wild. I'll send you a video of it. It's the best thing I've done in training. And I stumbled across it, and all of a sudden my hip flexibility is better. My hamstrings are looser. My low back doesn't hurt. And honestly, that was what I was doing for probably 8 to 10 weeks going into the SIG Hunter games. And I did that because I tore my hamstring last year. I did it as hamstring rehab. And I found that it built my work capacity. Again, I still had some issues while I was there. But I think that's probably due to such a differential between working a desk job at sea level and then going to 10,000 feet elevation and having to do some big boy stuff that, I was much further along. But I'll be honest, I'm hunting in Utah this year at a ranch very close to where we were in Wyoming. So I just said, okay, I know the terrain, I know the altitude, I know what my weakness was at the SIG Hunter game. So I know what I have to go do. And now I've been doing 50-pound rucks every morning. And then I'm adding 10 pounds a week. And it's like, okay, I'll give me 8 more weeks and I'll be ready for that.
Yeah.
So long story short, you want some way to have a strengthening load and then some way to do a rep effort where you could build conditioning and stamina.
That makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. Yeah. I mean, you brought up the day camp scenario. If you've got pack animals and, if you've got llamas in camp, I think that's a really great way to make sure that you don't have to carry very much weight, because you're definitely not going to kill anything, because llamas are an accidental species that shouldn't exist. So that's really smart. Like, if you really want to just save yourself from having to carry extra weight, definitely bring llamas with you, because you'll just go home with nothing but llama.
Are llama? I've never hunted with llamas. Are they like? Do you just hate them, or is that like? They make game run away. I don't even know.
I call them elk repellent, but the reason that I hate llamas is because horses and mules are terrified of them. So when I was growing up in this country, but behind me here, packing horses and mules and guiding people, every once in a while you'd come around the corner, on some trail that was 9 inches wide with 1,000 feet of drop next to it. And there'd be some dude with a bandana wrapped around his head and a llama behind him for some reason. And it would cause absolute disasters. So it's really similar to if you like wore a grizzly bear costume and like jumped out of the brush at people. It's equally irresponsible to bring llamas into the backcountry.
Really?
And for some reason, dude, it has become this trendy thing. And it is mind blowing to me because they can't carry hardly anything. They can carry less weight than a human. And a lot of times,
I've never messed with a llama before.
A lot of times, all they're carrying is their own food. So people are just bringing llamas hunting with them, which is some of the most bizarre behavior that I can imagine. It's like, why not chinchillas or, I don't know, an emu? Like, what are we doing? That's just your companion. Like, this is absolutely nuts. And people just think that they need to take a freaking llama with them because they saw it on a YouTube video.
That's hilarious. That is hilarious. Yeah, I want definitely a hunting emu or a what is that other thing that's kind of like a llama, but it's like weaker and crappier.
I can't imagine.
It has like the little poofy head, and
like an alpaca.
Yeah. Alpacas. Yeah. Ooh. They seem pretty worthless too. It sounds like bringing like an accordion on your hunting trip, right?
Yeah.
I love it. Elk repellent. That's perfect.
So, and I'm halfway just giving people a hard time, but also very seriously, llamas do cause a lot of wrecks in the backcountry, and I don't see them as really necessary or beneficial under most circumstances.
Now, how much weight could said llama carry?
I think that they can carry, and I'm not a llama expert. I'm more of an expert at talking trash about llamas, but I think that they can carry around 60 pounds.
So like a person.
Yeah, like a little person, maybe. I don't know, not a lot, but the smallest mule out there can carry over 100.
Right.
So it's like, what are we doing here? And you see guys that
Llamas are cheaper.
actually you can rent llamas. Can you imagine spending your money that recklessly? So you see guys that actually kill something and they're coming out of the backcountry with their llama, and the llamas will have like a fanny pack on, like a Joe Rogan fanny pack full of like, I don't know, a neat pine cone that they found along the way. And then the hunter is just like staggered along carrying everything. It's like, dude, what is going on? You just brought a llama hunting with you. I don't get it. I don't get it.
You're
But
like a companion llama. Right?
yeah, yeah.
Maybe
This is
they
my
like the llama. Maybe he's a good dude to hang out around the fire. Like, I don't know. But that's hilarious. I like the grizzly bear costume idea. That would be perfect as well. Oh man, I'll never look at llamas the same way.
good, good. That's good. It
I might
sounds
actually name one of my workouts that are like that are like a work capacity workout, but they're not very hard. I'll name it the llama.
we
You have to
were
like carry like a phone book for like 100 yards. You're like, all right. Thanks. For you young listeners out here, we used to have things called phone books, you see, and they were paper.
yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, it was great.
Black Rifle came out with a llama
Our
themed
llama.
coffee. Yeah.
Yeah, our
And
llama.
what a combination of words that is. Anyways, I was moose hunting with Cole Kramer last year in Alaska, and he busted out
What
some
a jerk, huh?
power llama. Yeah. No, I love Cole.
Yeah, Cole's amazing. We've been talking a lot of trash, especially since I beat the snot out of him at the games. I hope you listen to this, Cole.
He will.
Yeah, Cole's one of those guys. I was actually pretty terrified of his team because I'm like, okay, you got like a bunch of tier one operators led by a legitimate mountain goat. I was like, oh my gosh, I started stacking the deck. Cole's awesome.
Yeah. Well, when he brewed up some power llama, I had to refuse. I'm just not gonna go down that road.
You don't think the llama is bringing any type of power?
No, I've not anything good. Anyways, not anything good.
Yeah, it's like the chakra crystals or whatever. Like you hold the thing and they test the muscle test on the other side. It actually makes your arm weaker if you touch anything with the word llama in it.
Maybe I'm not gonna risk it.
No, I wouldn't. No, I think screw the power llamas. Sorry, Evan.
So it sounds like people need a bench, a rack, a barbell, some plates, and a couple kettlebells, and they can take on the world.
You could do a lot with that. I would say if there's a sled option, whether if you get one from Russ, cool. If you have something you could drag, but that's kind of a nice way to increase the carrying capacity without having to, you can leave it outside. You can do stuff like that. It's just, I think the biggest thing is really the training, the recipe more than just the food, right? Like the food is the equipment. Well, the recipe is how you use it. So that's, I've heard people say, what do you do for strength? Well, you train with a barbell. What do you do for endurance? Train with a barbell faster.
Yeah.
And there's some strange accuracy to that.
This little area here that has hardly any people produces tremendous runners year in and year out. Part of it's the elevation, but a lot of it is our running coach that we have here, and just the culture around running. But he had us for cross country doing almost exclusively hill sprints. And, very rarely would we actually ever run 5K in a practice. And it was never running at a racing pace. It was always running faster than that and always running on a hill. And then when athletes from here would go to, Western Oregon for state level competitions, they're dropping down thousands of feet of elevation, and now they're running on flat courses, and they just smoke checked everybody.
Sure.
This place is producing guys like David Ribich who are running under 4-minute miles. And, the number of really successful runners that have come out of here is not at all consistent with the population, because there's hardly any people here. So what is it? And I think a lot of it is running hills. And that is work out with a barbell faster, right?
Right, right. And you do have the cultural and contextual side of Oregon is a running,
Sure.
is University of Oregon, Bowerman, Hayward Field, all that stuff. Like
Yeah.
I've been there. I competed at Hayward. I know Tracktown USA is accurately depicted with Prefontaine and everybody else. Or heck,
Yeah.
Cameron Hayes, like that guy is running full.
Yeah. No, Oregon runs and wrestles and kind of always has.
Yeah, that's awesome. How far are you from like the Eugene area?
Oh, 12 hours,
Oh wow,
11 hours.
far,
Yeah.
far.
Yeah. The other side. So I'm like 40 miles from Idaho and like 40 miles from Washington.
Okay. Oh
Um,
cool.
yeah, there's nobody around. I think our closest stoplight is like 76 miles from where I am right here.
No.
So it's
I bet
awesome.
the game has to be amazing around there. There's no one to hunt them.
Well, not really, because all the hippies from Portland come over here, and our wolf and mountain lion populations are completely out of control. So, I honestly think that mule deer are probably going to go extinct in this area in my lifetime. So it's
Jeez.
actually a pretty sad scene from a wildlife perspective. But there was a time in the 70s, especially, that it was very, very good.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's sad, man. That's sad when you get folks that don't have a dog in the fight or they don't have, real information from that regional area, what's actually occurring, making choices or putting pressure on. I mean, that's an age-old problem within the hunting world, but still it's sad.
Well, people want to do the right thing. They think they're doing the right thing. They just might not know. And I'm not saying that I know either. I'm just doing my best. So I get it. Another example is this, and I'll just briefly get political on this, but the Return Act, which who knows where that thing will be by the time this show comes out. But basically, a congressman from Georgia proposed the Return Act, which would get rid of the excise tax on firearms and ammunition. And that produces between $1 and $1.5 billion a year that goes back to the states that helps with conservation related projects. And it's about 10% of the funding for the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife. And it would be similar in most states. It replaces that 1 to 1.5 billion with 800 million from offshore gas taxes, but it would hurt wildlife for sure.
Oh, yeah.
So, that guy, I'm sure, thinks he's doing the right thing. He's trying to, reduce infringement on the Second Amendment, but it's probably going to hurt wildlife in the long run. And it really puts sportsmen in a place where they're a little bit torn about it. And it's just a complicated issue. So it's definitely a case where somebody thinks they're doing the right thing, but might actually be doing some harm.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and not that's sad, and it's not necessarily to get political either. But a good friend of mine who's from the Oregon area, he and I were talking about gun control. I know that's a wildly hot topic, but he was talking to someone very, very high at the NRA one day. He didn't. His funny part is he didn't know who it was, which is hilarious in itself. But he was like, man, all this gun stuff is like y'all got to reframe this. And he's like, well, why are you saying that? He goes, well, talk to a pro gun person and say, why do you want to carry a gun? Now this guy's in the gun industry, you know, and he said, if you ask a pro gun person why they want to carry a gun, generally the answer could very easily be because I don't want to be hurt or killed by a crazy person.
Yeah.
I want to be able to defend myself and those around me from someone crazy, potentially with a gun. Ask an anti-gun person, why don't you want people to have guns? The answer quite possibly could be because I don't want myself or my family to be killed by a crazy person, potentially with a gun.
Yeah.
So in many ways, both sides kind of want the same thing in some ways. They just have two different ways of looking at the problem with two different vantage points and maybe data points. Now, I believe that, okay, if you want to live in the fairyland and say that, take away all guns and everyone will be safe, I don't believe that will ever happen. A, because you can't get rid of all the guns. B, because people are still going to kill each other with knives and hammers and whatever. So you have to realize what world we're in. But I thought it was a very interesting and somewhat poetic way to put it. Like, most rational people, if you were to ask them on either side of the line, are probably going to say they want their guns or don't want people to have guns based on the exact same outcome, is to not get killed by a crazy person. So I thought that was very interesting.
No, it's true, and it's spot on.
Sorry, are we not allowed to get political or talk about stuff on your podcast?
No, we do. We talk about everything on the show. And people bring up stuff here all the time that I completely disagree with, or I completely agree with, everything in between, but I want people to be able to talk about it. Like,
Sure.
I don't ever want this to be a show where people aren't allowed to talk about what they think and be able to just lay it out there. You know, whether I agree with them or not doesn't matter. Like, this is about this show is about you, and you know, you're here because you're an interesting person and you've accomplished interesting things, and because I like you, you know, that's it. So yeah, let's talk about it. I think it's awesome.
Heck yeah. Heck yeah.
But with that said, we are running out of time.
That's the big hook. You're like, it was really interesting.
No, that's not it. But no, if people want to get their home gym set up because COVID shut down their gym, or for whatever reason, you know, they want to outfit their high school or their college or whatever, they want to get some American made heavy metal. How do they find you? How do they do it?
Yeah, I really appreciate it. We'd love to help out. Sorinex.com, Sorinex.com is our general website. We have most of the stuff we do on there. You can check out the facilities page to see whether there's some personal home gyms that would probably be pretty interesting to some folks, and a lot of different colleges. And just so you can see the array of things that we do. Follow us on Instagram, Sorinex Outdoors, if you're into the outdoor side. I'm Bert Sorin there. Usually everything I'm doing involves, you know, usually my kids, shooting something, swimming around, something, cooking something. It's pretty simple.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
Kind of who I am.
And we'll have links to all that in the podcast description if you guys don't want to hunt it up. So, well, Bert, thank you again very much, and look forward to seeing what you turn up on that place in Utah this year. I think you're going to have a special experience out there.
Thank you, James. I really appreciate it. And what hunts do you have coming up? You're about to hit a bunch?
Yeah, it'll start getting serious in a couple weeks. So August 1st, I'll roll hard straight until January. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, please keep sending me some pictures of the successes, and even if you have near misses, they're all. This is the best time of the year where everyone starts sharing their trail camera pictures, and you get pics from all your boys that are doing some amazing things out there. And I know you're doing it, so I'm looking forward to seeing pics, and I'll share a few if I aim small, miss small. You know.
Heck yeah, buddy. Looking forward to it.
Thanks a lot, James.
Thank you. I'm working on building a house this year, which is something that I know nothing about, and I love that. It's exciting. Everything is a new challenge, and there's lots of challenges that pop up. The other day, we were laying out rebar and getting ready to pour concrete for the foundation of the shop that's going to be next to the house. And one of the guys that was there that was helping, one of the construction crewmen, I looked over and he had a Stanley thermos sitting on the end of the trailer. I said, "How do you like that thing?" And he goes, "Oh, I love it. I've had it for a decade." It's like, you know, if you find any environment where people are out there working hard with their hands outside, no matter the conditions, you're probably going to see a Stanley product there. It's something that just goes with that blue collar labor, because that's what this product is doing. It is out there working just as hard as you are. It's going to be there as long as you are. It's going to be there after you're done. It's something that I feel passionate about with every piece of gear that I take either into the woods or into the workplace. Like, it's got to be able to outwork me, and I work really hard myself. If you are also a hard worker, and I'm sure that you are, then you could probably appreciate the same type of gear. If you go to stanley1913.com and you use the discount code 6RANCH, that's the number 6 and the word ranch, you can get 25% off just about any of their products. And I encourage you to do that. They're a great supporter of this show. And great supporter of this audience. Again, I love you guys, and I just want to pass this this discount and the savings on to you. If you want something from Stanley, I encourage you to get it. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share the show with a friend. You can also rate the podcast and leave a review. Your support allows me to keep doing what I love, which is meeting incredible folks and sharing their stories with you. For more content and photos, follow the show on Instagram at Six Ranch Podcast or me at Six Ranch Outfitters. This episode was produced by Emily Brannigan, with original music written and performed by Justin Hay. Art for the Six Ranch Podcast was created by John Chatelain and digitized by Celia Christofferson. Tune in every Monday for a brand new episode of the Six Ranch Podcast. I'll catch you next week.